Another weekend here at home in Carbondale with the head coach Lance Rhodes and Saluki baseball. Saluki's on a roll, of course, beating SIUE on the road, then sweeping Houston Christian, beating Lindenwood in a pitcher's duel, and now they have their eyes set this weekend here against Jacksonville State. With the coach Lance Rhodes, I am Luke Martin. Coach Rhodes, congratulations. 5-game winning streak for your team. And when you look at it, there's a lot of games you've had to win in many different ways here over the 5 games. I know that's got to be maybe the biggest thing is it's not like you've won 5 in a row and you've won all 5 with the exact same formula.
No, I mean, I think that's what makes every game unique. You never know what's going to happen. And we talk about it all the time as a team, just being a diverse team where we can win, whether it's, having to play small ball on days where it's tough to score runs, being able to slug with teams on days where the wind's blowing out, being able to play defense consistently. And then I think over the last 2 weeks, our pitching has thrown like we thought they were going to throw whenever we broke in preseason. And it's again, that's what makes playing competition so fun, because you just never know what's going to happen when you step on the field, and you got to be able to adjust. You got to be able to adjust to weather. Got to be able to adjust to umpires, and the teams that are able to do that and have the ability to win in multiple ways, it just allows you to have more success.
Coach Rhodes, you mentioned adjusting to umpires, adjusting to a strike zone. And one of the things that we talked about at length here in our conversations was you really appreciated and thought your team's knowledge of what the strike zone is was important. I think one of the areas that you can look at, there's a lot of numbers, of course, in our game. You're drawing more walks than you're striking out right now. Do you feel that really speaks volumes of your guys knowing what's a strike, what isn't a strike, trying to work the count to their favor? And it's not just getting base hits, they're able to get on base in multiple ways.
Yeah. Well, the number one thing that we talk about as an offense with our guys is the main thing is to get on base. Now, everybody wants to get on base by getting a hit, but getting on base and crossing home plate is the number one important thing that we do as an offense. The one thing that we do know is the balls that we swing outside of the strike zone, we typically aren't going to get on base because you don't make hard contact with that. So our job is to eliminate the weak contact, know what the strike zone is, force them to throw it in there. And when they do throw it in the strike zone, those are the pitches that we're going to be able to hit hard. So, our guys have done a good job this year. Our individual on base percentage is to have an on base percentage over 400. We feel like if as an individual you're doing that, then you're on base enough to allow us to score the runs that we need to be able to score. And we've done a good job of taking the free passes that the other teams have given us, which is super important because, if we're going outside the strike zone, all of a sudden we're not having the base runners that we need in order to be able to put pressure on the other team.
Coach Rhodes, one of the areas too, which is just kind of a surprise. Obviously, you're going to have midweeks throughout the rest of the year, but in terms of a non-conference weekend, this is your last non-conference weekend before you get into Missouri Valley Conference play. Not to say that there is a huge switch in terms of the preparation and how you guys go about your day-to-day, but how important is it when you know this is your last non-conference weekend that will now set you up the rest of the way, obviously starting with Valpo here next weekend in terms of Missouri Valley Conference action?
I think the biggest thing is at this point in the season, you want to feel like you're playing good baseball. At the beginning of the year, there's roles that you're trying to figure out still. Just getting out there, knocking off the nerves. At this point, we're kind of past that. And, it's time to be playing solid baseball. Now, obviously, we're going to have individuals that have slumps or bad moments and things like that. But as a collective unit, as an entire team, we should be, solidifying our play at this point. And I like where we're at. I really do. I think as a complete team, we're starting to play more complete. I think over the last week, we've probably, had some offensive guys that have kind of slumped a little bit, but I feel like this was a good week for us. We're on spring break. We had the opportunity to really get into some small group work with some guys offensively. So hopefully we're kind of timing it out right where we can have, one more good non-conference week and really feel good about going into conference play where, like you said, they're all important. But, whenever we roll out there on Friday against Valpo, it's just going to have a little bit more to it. And that's what is special about conference play is that it just means a little bit more. And, we want to be playing good baseball going into that weekend. So I'm excited to get back out there and we'll get tested this weekend. I mean, Jacksonville State is playing extremely well right now and they got a lot of confidence coming in here as well.
Coach Rhodes, it's early, and you and I both know from your experience being in this and for years as a coach and mine from a broadcasting perspective that metrics are obviously going to change. But the fact right now that the Valley has improved in terms of their metrics early on in the season, I think the league right now is eighth in RPI. Last year, the league finished around 11th. Again, it's going to fluctuate. It's going to continue to go as we go throughout. But we've had a lot of conversations off air where you really like where the league is at heading into this year and feel like especially the upper half of the league is going to have really good competition within the league. Just so far from everything you've seen, the metrics flowing in, again, understand that it's all going to fluctuate. Do you like where we are as a league right now before we get into league play starting next week?
I really do. I think our league is very competitive this year. And, I've mentioned this to you a couple times. There's somebody going to finish in fifth place in our league this year that's a very good baseball team. And there's not many times you think somebody in fifth place is having a very good season. But the top of our league is very experienced. There's a ton of older players that have had a ton of experience in our league. And then you got a bunch of transfers mixed in there as well. But our league, just from looking at it on paper, is probably as good as it's been since I've been here as a coach. And every weekend is going to be extremely tough. I mean, even when you look at the teams that are at the bottom of the league, so to speak, right now, when you look at some of the individuals that they throw on the mound, you can get beat any game that you don't show up and play. It's I think it's very similar right now to where you would look at it from a basketball perspective. If you don't show up, you're going to get beat. So it's going to be exciting to get into MVC play and kind of see how it all shakes out. But man, I think it's a coin toss right now to say who's going to win the league because there's just so many good teams.
Coach, let's look towards Jacksonville State this weekend. What are the biggest challenges you feel they will pose for you for your team, especially with your group right now? It's feeling really good about themselves and like the way you guys are playing.
Well, I think the biggest challenge is when you look at their pitching staff, they just mix and match a ton. They're using upwards of 5 to 8, 9 arms sometimes every single game they play. And it's just a different look. There's not a ton of velocity there, but it's a ton of off speed mix. So our guys are going to have to be able to um, we're going to have to make adjustments and hit some lesser velocity that we've been used to, but also we're going to have to be able to hit some off speed pitches this weekend in order to have some success. And they've got a bunch of left-handed arms too. So I'm sure with the way that our lineup's been constructed, I mean, we're going to have some left on left matchups this weekend. But the biggest thing is I think they've had 4, maybe 5 walk-off wins already. So, they're as a team, they're staying in their games the whole time. They're not giving up or anything like that. So, we're just going to have to make sure that we stay in the game for 27 outs. We don't ever feel like we've got the game won until we get it done. And then, we just got to go out and just do what we do. Continue to play good baseball. We're a very talented club, and I like our matchups against them if we play well. But they've had a good week and a half run as well. They took a series against Iowa last weekend. They won both their midweek games this week coming in and scored a bunch of runs in both midweek wins. So they're coming in feeling really good about themselves. We feel good about ourselves too. And it should be a good weekend. And it's a good test for us to be able to go into conference play, 2 teams that are playing well to get us ready for league play next week.
Coach Rhodes, you mentioned it early that you really feel like now that your pitching staff is getting to that level that you all thought they could be at from the fall. Is there anything over the last week, I guess, week and a half of this 5 game stretch where you feel like maybe it flipped from that point? I mean, we obviously didn't even talk about, obviously Niggett was outstanding this week at Lindenwood. Dermody's pitched really well for you on the weekends as well. Like, where do you see this staff, not necessarily just individuals, but this staff taking strides?
I think the biggest thing is after, and I can maybe it was Central Arkansas. We just kind of had a team meeting, a player meeting after that as well, and it was kind of just bluntly speaking, it was like enough is enough. Uh, we're way too talented to be doing what we're doing, and it's time to get over the nerves. It's time to go back to trusting our preparation and then going out there on the field and executing and really not necessarily trying to outsmart or just perfect a scouting report. Go out and be good, be yourself. And it's been more over the last 2 weeks, just really just worrying about ourselves, taking care of ourselves, executing what we can do really well. And I think now you're starting to see their ability level that we saw for an entire year, shine in games, because whether it's them being freed up to just go out there and say, okay, like I can do it. Like we said before, most of these guys had done it at the college level, but it was at another place or it was at a junior college. But I think now we've gotten over that fear of not trying to screw it up or not trying to lose a game, and they've been really throwing the ball extremely well.
Coach Rhodes, I don't even want to describe this as a small thing here. My last question to you, but as fans come out this week, of course, it'll be the first time for me this weekend to see the new video board in use out at the Itch this past weekend. I've heard so many positive reviews of just how it looks, how it's added to the ballpark. Just again, I mean, it's been one of the things we've talked about as we led into it this year of all the upgrades from the turf. And I know there's more upgrades coming in terms of the fundraising and getting the clubhouse redone and all those things with your program that are so important. It should be a great weekend of weather and a great chance for all of Saluki Nation now to come out and really see the park and how great it is really transformed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think when people show up, they're going to be very happy with just the cosmetics of the way the park looks. And I hope we have a great crowd this weekend. I know people are hopefully coming back from spring break with the students, and then they can come out on the hill and hang out. And we're not going to have to worry about rain or anything like that. But it does, man. The stadium looks great. The new turf looks great. Adding the video board is just a really nice touch. We've got a lot of really good things going on, man. It's our place looks fantastic. Our team's playing well. Hopefully, we can get a good crowd out. We can play well, get the fans excited, and then have another great showing as we get into conference play next week whenever Valpo comes into town. But it's yeah, man. The place looks great. There's a lot of good energy going around right now. I hope we have a great weekend and the fans can enjoy being at the ballpark.
Well, no question. The biggest thing that brings it all together is a team that's fun to watch, and your team has been incredibly fun to watch here in this 5 game stretch, and know that will continue this weekend against a hot Jacksonville State team. Coach Rhodes, looking forward to being on the call all weekend with you this weekend at Itchy Jones Stadium. Thanks so much for the time, and let's have a fun weekend here in beautiful Carbondale.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.